So you want to own a McDonald's. Before we get to the money, and there is a lot of money to talk about, there's something McDonald's needs from you first. Something that has nothing to do with your bank account or your business experience or your credit score. They need to see you in a uniform, a paper hat, a grease-stained polo, a name tag with your first name on it, standing next to a 17-year-old at a cash register, or on your knees scrubbing a bathroom you don't own, unpaid, for up to a year. And that's just to be considered. Most franchise businesses operate on a single rule. If you have the money, you get the contract. McDonald's threw that rule out decades ago and replaced it with something entirely different. Something that has made them simultaneously the most coveted and the most feared franchise system on earth. Are you ready to scrub 500 toilets for free? Because that's where this starts. The entry cost in the United States runs between $1.4 million and $2.7 million. That covers everything: equipment, renovation, the initial lease setup, and a one-time franchise fee of $45,000 just for the right to put the logo on the building. The range is wide because the variables are real. A freestanding location in suburban Ohio costs less to build out than a high-traffic urban storefront in Chicago. Either way, the number is what it is, and McDonald's does not negotiate it. But here's the part that catches most people off guard. Of that total, at least $500,000 has to be your own cash. Not a loan, not borrowed from a relative, not money you pulled out of your house. Liquid, verified, personal capital that McDonald's can confirm actually exists in your accounts. You can finance the rest through a bank, but that $500,000 is non-negotiable. And that's before McDonald's has agreed to anything, before they've approved you, before they've assigned you a location, before the conversation has moved past the application stage. The reason McDonald's insists on that much personal capital is entirely deliberate. They've learned over decades that owners who have significant personal money at stake operate differently than owners using almost entirely borrowed funds. The psychological weight of $500,000 of your own money changes behavior. It's one thing to risk a bank's money. It's another thing entirely to risk your own retirement savings. McDonald's has data going back decades showing that franchisees with higher personal capital injections have lower failure rates, maintain higher operational standards, and stay in the system longer. That $500,000 isn't just a qualification threshold. It's a filter designed to predict behavior. It's also, if we're being direct about it, a safety net for McDonald's. If your location fails, that personal capital gets liquidated first. The corporation's position is secured by layers of collateral and contractual rights that come before your equity. You're not just proving you have money, you're proving you can afford to lose it. Outside the US, the numbers shift. In the United Kingdom, the full cost of opening a single restaurant runs between £900,000 and £1.5 million, roughly 1 to 1.7 million euros. Germany sits at around 1.4 million euros. Eastern Europe is cheaper still. In Poland, you can open a location for as little as 1 million euros. For the same price as one American McDonald's, you could theoretically open 2 restaurants in parts of Europe and still have capital left over. But choosing a country isn't just about comparing price tags. In some markets, you don't get to choose at all. In India, McDonald's doesn't sell licenses to private individuals. The entire country is divided between 2 master franchisees. Westlife Food World controls the south and west. Connaught Plaza Restaurants handles the north and east. Latin America works the same way. A single company called Arcos Dorados holds the McDonald's rights across 21 countries. No matter how much capital you bring, you cannot get a direct franchise agreement in those markets. The best available path is becoming a sub-franchisee underneath the regional monopoly, which means paying fees to McDonald's and then paying a cut to the middleman sitting between you and corporate. That arrangement is worth understanding because it illustrates how much control McDonald's maintains even when it delegates territory. A sub-franchisee doesn't negotiate directly with corporate on pricing, technology requirements, or menu changes. Those mandates flow down from the master franchisee, who is contractually required to enforce McDonald's standards. But the master franchisee also takes their percentage from your operations. When McDonald's decides to implement a technology upgrade that costs money, the expense doesn't discriminate. You pay either way. But you had no seat at the table when the decision was made. Assume you've decided on the US, you have your $2 million, you're ready to move forward. McDonald's will reject you anyway. Not because of your finances, because you haven't earned your way in yet. Here is what earning your way in actually looks like. McDonald's places you inside an existing restaurant as a trainee. Full-time means 35 hours a week for 6 months. Part-time stretches the same content over 10 to 12 months. Either way, the work is identical to what a new teenage employee does on their first shift. You work the register, you clean the bathrooms, you restock the fryers, you manage the lunch rush, you wear the same uniform as the kid next to you who is earning minimum wage and counting the hours until his shift ends. At the same time, you are enrolled at what McDonald's officially and completely seriously calls Hamburger University. The name sounds like a joke. The curriculum is not. They teach supply chain math, food cost analysis, labor scheduling for a crew of 60 people with constant turnover, franchise compliance, and how to manage the kind of operational crises that happen daily in a high-volume food service environment. Passing all of it does not guarantee you a restaurant. After you pass, you are eligible to apply for available locations. The regional field vice president makes the final call. They have already confirmed your money is real. Now they are looking at your full biography, your professional history, how you handled yourself during training, and whatever else they decide is relevant. For every available location in the system, there are dozens of applications. The corporation picks whoever they like best. The vetting process is where McDonald's philosophy becomes most visible. They are not selecting franchisees based purely on financial capacity. They are selecting for a specific operational mindset. How did you respond when you were told to clean a bathroom you didn't own? How did you interact with crew members who might be teenagers with no work experience? Did you try to cut corners during training, or did you learn the system exactly as it was designed? Did you ask good questions at Hamburger University, or did you assume you already understood how restaurants work? The corporation has decades of embedded experience in its selection system. They've watched which personality types succeed and which ones create friction. They've learned which backgrounds produce operators who respect brand standards and which ones produce operators who fight the system. That pattern is exactly why someone like Vijay Salhi could walk in with nothing and eventually own 19 restaurants, while others with far more capital and connections washed out in the first year. Vijay Salhi came to the United States in 1983 from a small village called Mukandpur in India. He was around 25 years old. No money, no connections. His English was limited. He took a job as a regular cashier at a McDonald's in Somerville, Massachusetts. Minimum wage, night shifts, grease on the uniform. He stayed. For 32 years he stayed. From cashier to shift leader, from shift leader to manager, from manager to territorial supervisor. He did not fight the system. He learned it from the inside, one level at a time. In 2015, when he was nearly 60 years old, he finally had enough savings and enough reputation inside the system to buy his first 2 restaurants. One of those restaurants was the same location in Somerville where he had stood at a register 32 years earlier. Today, Vijay Salhi and his sons own 19 McDonald's restaurants. He is not planning to stop. His story is the one McDonald's tells in every franchise recruiting conversation. It is also the story that takes 3 decades to complete. If you are not prepared to repeat that path, your road still starts with the same 6 to 12 months of unpaid training and Hamburger University. The difference is that you are bringing capital he didn't have. Most new franchisees in the US don't start with a brand new location. They buy an existing restaurant from someone already inside the system who wants to exit. That is the most common entry point. Buying an established restaurant with a proven sales history costs more than opening a new one in many cases. A location doing $3 million a year in sales might sell for $500,000 to $750,000 in franchise rights, on top of whatever equipment value exists. McDonald's has to approve every sale. They review the buyer, they review the terms, and they collect a transfer fee. You do not simply buy a McDonald's the way you buy a used car. Corporate blesses the transaction, or it does not happen. Right now, there are more owners looking to exit the system than at any point in recent memory. That has a specific explanation. In December 2020, McDonald's sent an email to its US franchisees. The corporation raised technology fees, removed a Happy Meal subsidy, and added several new mandatory payments. The combined increase came to roughly $12,000 per restaurant per year. Across the 13,000 US locations, that single email quietly transferred approximately $170 million per year from franchisee accounts to corporate revenue. The timing matters. December 2020 was the worst operating year in decades for most franchisees. The pandemic had collapsed dine-in revenue. Labor shortages were severe, supply chain costs were climbing. Many franchisees had been running at reduced capacity for months. McDonald's corporate had maintained steady revenue through continued delivery and drive-through volume. The franchisees were absorbing the operational shock, and in that environment, the corporation chose to increase fees. The message was clear. The corporation's position is protected regardless of what happens in the broader economy. Franchisees absorb the variability. The response was unlike anything in the system's 70-year history. 95% of franchisees voted to pause communication with the corporation entirely. They stopped responding to directives. They ignored internal processes. Some actively created friction wherever they could. The standoff eventually produced the signing of a Franchisee Bill of Rights in January 2026. The document covers 15 specific points on what the corporation cannot do to its franchisees. The most significant is pricing autonomy. A franchisee in New York, where rent and wages are structurally higher, can now set prices that reflect actual operating costs. The corporation cannot force a uniform price that only works in cheaper markets. The tension between franchisees and the corporation is not just about fees. It is also about race and about power, and about what happens when a franchisee becomes successful enough to threaten the corporation's control. George Michel is a Hispanic-American franchisee who entered the system in 1990. He built a portfolio of 37 restaurants generating approximately $158 million in annual revenue. Over several years, McDonald's required him to invest $20 million in mandatory renovations across his locations. He completed the work. After he did, the corporation declined to renew his contracts and offered to buy him out at well below market value. His daughter applied for her own franchise license. She was denied. The corporation made clear, without committing it to writing, that the daughter's application was connected to whether the father sold 30 of his restaurants voluntarily. Michel filed a lawsuit in federal court in New York alleging racial discrimination. The case is still active. The Michel situation reveals something structural about how McDonald's manages its franchisee portfolio. When a franchisee becomes large enough and powerful enough to have real leverage, the corporation has tools to manage that power. One tool is the renewal decision. Another is approval authority over family members trying to enter the system. These are not written policies, they are implicit understandings embedded in how power flows through the structure. Michel spent decades building something substantial. The corporation held the option to renew or not renew. When his interests conflicted with theirs, they declined renewal and then added pressure by blocking his daughter. Herbert Washington ran a similar path. He was once the largest black franchisee in the system, owning 27 restaurants. He spent years in litigation with the corporation over racial discrimination. McDonald's eventually bought out 13 of his locations for $33.5 million on one condition. Washington had to leave the system entirely and drop all lawsuits. His statement in court was simple. He said that inside McDonald's, there are two systems. He did not elaborate, he didn't need to. Now for the part that determines whether any of this makes financial sense. Assume you have made it through selection, passed your exams, and you now hold the keys to a US location doing average network revenue. That number is roughly $4 million a year. Before you see a dollar of profit, the corporation collects its fees. Rent is first and largest. The land and building always belong to McDonald's. You lease both from them, and rent is set as a percentage of your monthly sales, typically between 8% and 18%. At some high-traffic locations, that percentage rises to 31.75%, nearly a third of everything the restaurant earns that month before you have paid for a single ingredient or a single employee. On top of rent, there is a 4% royalty fee for the right to use the brand. Gross sales. Before your costs come out, before you pay your staff, before you buy the beef. The royalty comes off the top. Another 4% goes to McDonald's Global Marketing Fund. The advertising campaigns you see on television that you are paying for whether you personally run promotions or not. Then the technology fee, currently around $5,000 per restaurant per year, covers the point-of-sale systems, the mobile app infrastructure, and whatever software the corporation rolls out next. Run the actual math on your $4 million location. Rent, royalties, and marketing take roughly 20% off the top, $800,000 gone before operations begin. Food and paper costs run around 30 to 32% of sales, another $1.2 million, purchased exclusively through McDonald's-approved suppliers at prices McDonald's has negotiated. You do not shop around, you buy from the list. Labor for a staff of approximately 60 people, including payroll taxes and management salaries, consumes another 25 to 30%. Call it $1 million on your volume. Utilities, insurance, maintenance, and loan repayments on your equipment eat what remains. After everything, a franchisee operating a single average location is looking at net operating income somewhere between $150,000 and $300,000 per year. Some operators do better, many do worse. At $300,000 annually on a $2 million investment, you are looking at 6 to 7 years just to break even. Assuming no equipment failures, no slow seasons, no surprise fee increases arriving by email in December. In Europe, the math lands in a similar range. A franchisee in the UK or Germany can net between €150,000 and €250,000 per year after all fees and costs. The initial investment is lower, so payback is somewhat faster, but the structure is identical. You are earning a thin margin on high volume, while the corporation owns the ground beneath your feet. The labor situation deserves its own section because it is a cost that most people never fully account for before signing. A typical McDonald's location will see annual employee turnover of 100% to 150%. That means in a restaurant with 60 employees, you are recruiting, onboarding, and training 60 to 90 new people every single year. That churn is expensive, exhausting, and constant. It never stops. Minimum wage increases in recent years have added significant pressure on top of that. In California, the minimum wage for fast food workers rose to $20 per hour in April 2024. A franchisee in Los Angeles running a location with 80 employees saw their annual labor costs jump by millions, essentially overnight. Some operators responded by raising prices, others cut scheduled hours. Many began pushing customers towards self-ordering kiosks to reduce headcount over time. The kiosk situation is worth understanding because it captures the fundamental economics of the franchisee relationship in miniature. McDonald's has been rolling out self-ordering kiosks system-wide. The data supports the investment. Average ticket sizes go up when customers order themselves because the kiosk never forgets to upsell the large size and never rushes anyone through the order. Accuracy improves, volume increases, but the capital cost of installing kiosks falls entirely on the franchisee. A full kiosk build-out for a single location can run $100,000 or more. McDonald's corporate benefits from higher system sales and a stronger brand perception. The franchisee absorbs the expense and operational disruption of installation and staff retraining. This dynamic repeats across every technology initiative McDonald's has pushed in the last decade. Mobile app integration, digital menu boards, loyalty program infrastructure, every one of these costs real money to implement at the location level. The corporation reaps the reward in higher volume and stronger franchise valuations. The franchisee pays for the infrastructure that generates those rewards. Now the scenario nobody wants to plan for. You have run your restaurant for 6 years. You have almost broken even on your original investment. The 20-year franchise agreement is approaching renewal. McDonald's decides not to renew it. The reasons they give may be vague. They offer to buy you out. The price they offer is 70% of what the business is actually worth on the open market. You can try to negotiate, but they hold everything you don't. The building, the equipment, the customer data from the loyalty app, the license to operate under the brand. Without renewal, none of those things belong to you anymore. Everything you spent 6 years building transfers. You leave with a check that does not reflect what you put in. There is no automatic right of renewal in a McDonald's franchise agreement. The corporation decides. If your performance has been strong and your compliance record is clean, renewal is likely. If standards have slipped, if you have had food safety violations, if you have been financially distressed, or if your interests have begun to conflict with the corporations in ways that make them uncomfortable, they can decline, and they have. That scenario is the clearest illustration of what a McDonald's franchise actually is. You are not building an asset you own outright. You are paying to operate someone else's asset, following their rules, on their property, with their brand, for a defined period of time. The returns are real when things go well. But the property rights are always one-sided. The corporation can change the fees. The corporation can decline to renew. The corporation controls pricing in your building and approves any significant changes you make. You are a highly trained, heavily invested operator inside a system that was designed to benefit the top of the structure first. Here is a comparison worth sitting with before you decide. McDonald's Corporation stock has appreciated roughly 700% over the last 20 years. If you had taken that same $2 million and purchased shares in 2005 instead of opening a franchise, it would be worth approximately $16 million today. No selection process, no Hamburger University, no unpaid training shifts, no mandatory renovations billed to you after the fact, no technology fees increasing by email, no franchise agreement expiring at a moment inconvenient for you. You would have outperformed the average franchisee by a significant margin while doing nothing more complicated than holding a stock position. That comparison is not an argument against franchises. It is an argument for being honest about what you are actually buying. A franchise is not primarily a financial investment. It is a job that comes with an investment attached to it. You are buying the right to run a specific operation under specific conditions for a defined period. If you want to run a business day-to-day, manage people, build something operational, and eventually scale the way Vijay Salhi did over 32 years and 19 restaurants, the model works. If your goal is capital appreciation with minimal involvement, the stock has historically been the cleaner answer. The franchise model generates real wealth, but only at scale and only for operators willing to grind through it. Owners with 5 or more locations can spread fixed management costs across multiple revenue streams, negotiate more effectively with local suppliers, and install professional managers in each location instead of working the floor themselves. A franchisee operating 10 locations at $3 million each has $30 million in system sales. Even at a modest 6% net margin, that produces $1.8 million annually. The math changes dramatically. McDonald's knows this and actively prefers operators who intend to grow. Getting approved for your 5th location is structurally easier than getting approved for your 1st. The operators who build genuine wealth inside this system do it through patience, operational precision, and relentless expansion. They do not treat their 1st location as a retirement vehicle. They treat it as proof of concept. Then they do it again and again. Vijay Salhi's 19 restaurants are the version of the story McDonald's uses in recruiting. George Michel's 37 restaurants and $158 million in annual revenue, followed by $20 million in mandated renovations, a contract non-renewal, and a racial discrimination lawsuit still active in federal court, is the version they prefer not to discuss. McDonald's has over 40,000 locations across more than 100 countries. Approximately 95% of those are franchised. The corporation has spent 7 decades refining the terms of that arrangement, and they have refined it in their favor at every opportunity. The franchisee brings the capital, absorbs the operational risk, manages the workforce, handles the compliance, and pays for the technology upgrades. In return, the franchisee hands back a reliable stream of rent and royalties to corporate on every dollar that walks through the door. For McDonald's Corporation, this is one of the most efficient business models ever constructed. The operating margin on the franchise segment exceeded 85% in 2023. That is not a typo. They collected that margin while owning the real estate, controlling the brand, and bearing almost none of the daily operational risk. That risk sits entirely with the franchisee. For the franchisee, it is a demanding, capital-intensive business that rewards scale, operational discipline, and time. Walk in underfunded, Assume the system runs itself, or treat the first location as passive income, and you will learn quickly that McDonald's did not build a $23 billion revenue company by leaving money on the table. The golden arches stay on the building whether you are inside it or not. That is the business you are buying into. Not the brand, not the building, not the customer base. A 20-year operating agreement with a corporation that owns everything underneath it and retains the right to walk away when the agreement ends. The question is not whether McDonald's is profitable. It clearly is for McDonald's. The question is whether the slice they leave for you is worth everything they require to get it.